Tonight was supposed to be mine. My company's annual conference had drawn a record crowd: investors, partners, even media outlets. I stood in the center of it all, smiling, thanking sponsors, shaking hands. Every inch of me screamed composure. And then I saw it. Nathan, my husband of 10 years, sliding his hand against the bare back of Mia, my best friend since college. Not a friendly graze, not innocent. Intimate. Too long, too comfortable. My breath caught, and for a moment I thought maybe I was hallucinating. Stress does that, right? But then Mia leaned closer, whispering something that made his lips twitch in the smirk I once believed was reserved for me. I forced my voice steady as I finished my introduction on stage, smiling at applause I could barely hear. My palms itched. I didn't dare look toward them again. But as soon as the spotlight dimmed and the networking hour began, I noticed two things at once: my phone buzzing in my clutch, and their silhouettes moving toward the side doors. The buzz was a message from a colleague. "Zara, are you seeing this?" They just left together. The blood in my ears roared. I excused myself with a nod and walked as calmly as possible toward the hall. My heels clicked against the marble like a countdown to detonation. Guests turned their heads, whispering, sensing something brewing. One man, a junior analyst, actually followed, phone in hand, recording like he was chasing gossip for breakfast. The hallway stretched out like a tunnel, dimmer, quieter. I spotted them near the elevators, Mia's hand resting lightly on Nathan's chest as if she had every right to be there. His tie was loose, her lipstick was too fresh. "Really?" My voice ripped out of me before I even reached them. They both froze. Nathan's hand shot down to his side like he'd been burned, while Mia's eyes widened but didn't flinch away. If anything, she straightened her posture, chin tilting up like a woman caught but unashamed. "Zara," Nathan started, his voice calm, rehearsed even, as if he'd prepared excuses. "It's not what it looks like." "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I snapped, closing the distance. I could feel the eyes behind me. At least a dozen people had trailed into the hall, their curiosity feeding the oxygen to my fire. My husband, my best friend. Together, at my conference. Mia's lips parted, but she didn't speak. I didn't give her the chance. I lifted my hand and slapped Nathan across the face so hard the sound cracked through the hallway. Gasps echoed behind me. Someone muttered, "Jesus Christ." And another whispered, "Get this on camera." He staggered back a step, palm to his cheek, his eyes wide. "Zara, stop." "Stop?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You stop. Stop pretending you didn't drag me out here in front of my colleagues, my sponsors, my world, just to humiliate me." Mia finally tried, her voice smooth but shaking. "Zara, you're overreacting. We were just... Don't." I turned on her, my chest rising and falling with every breath. "Don't insult me with just... I've seen the way you look at him. I've ignored it. I've made excuses for you. But tonight, you had the nerve to walk out of my event on my arm, Nathan, and disappear with her like I'm invisible." The phones were up now. The red recording dots stared at me like eyes. And I knew this moment wasn't just mine. It was everyone's. Nathan reached for me, desperation breaking through his face. "Let's talk in private." I stepped back, my heels clicking like a gavel. "Private? No. You decided to make this public the second you laid your hand on her in front of my guests." My voice cracked, but I pushed it louder. "So let everyone see the truth. The perfect husband, the loyal best friend, both frauds." Mia shifted uncomfortably, her mask slipping for the first time. "This isn't fair." "Fair?" I laughed again, but it came out broken. "Fair is me giving you 10 years of my life. Fair is me trusting you with my child, my home, my heart. And this is how you repay me? At a conference I bled for?" The silence that followed was thick, only broken by the faint ding of the elevator. I inhaled sharply, turned on my heel, and walked back toward the ballroom. My hands trembled, my throat burned, but my spine held straight. Behind me, I heard whispers growing louder, the click of shoes following me back. The video would spread. By morning, people across our industry would know. The humiliation wasn't just personal anymore. It was professional, social, all-consuming. And yet, buried beneath the sting of betrayal, a seed sprouted. Anger. Cold, steady, dangerous anger. As I pushed open the ballroom doors, the noise of chatter dimmed for a beat, all eyes on me. I forced my lips into a tight smile, walked past the stairs, and whispered only to myself, "This isn't the end. This is the beginning. You'll regret ever thinking I was weak." And in that moment, I swore revenge. The drive home that night was a blur of city lights and silence. My daughter Lila was at my sister's house for a sleepover, thank God. At least she wouldn't see the wreckage in my face. I sat in the dark parking lot outside my own house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Everything I had built suddenly felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Nathan and I had been married for 10 years. We met when I was 24. I was already climbing the corporate ladder, hungry and unafraid, while he was charming, ambitious, but unstable. He had big dreams and no roadmap. I was the steady one. I believed in him enough to pour not just my time, but also my inheritance into his ideas. When his first startup collapsed, I reassured him. When the second failed, I worked longer hours to cover the bills. I kept telling myself that's what marriage meant: loyalty, patience, sacrifice. And then there was Mia. She wasn't just my friend, she was my shadow. We met in college, shared dorm rooms, heartbreaks, late-night takeout. She became Lila's unofficial aunt, showing up with birthday gifts, watching her when Nathan and I were busy. For years, I thought I was lucky to have a friend so close she blurred the line between blood and bond. Now, in hindsight, every blurred line feels like a warning sign I refuse to read. I remembered dinners where Mia would laugh too hard at Nathan's jokes, leaning across me with that dazzling smile. Or the way he would defend her when I teased her for being single too long. "She just hasn't found the right person yet," he'd say a little too warmly. I brushed it off because trust was the currency I lived by. And now I realized I'd been bankrupt for years without knowing it. The stakes weren't just emotional, they were financial, generational, permanent. The house we lived in had been mine first, bought with the last of my inheritance. His name was on the deed now because I thought sharing meant love. The savings account was half his, the one I built paycheck by paycheck. Even my company's growth had been fueled by my sacrifices: late nights, missed family trips, moments stolen from Lila. And Lila. She was only 8, bright, observant, with eyes too sharp for her age. She once asked me, months before all this, "Mom, why does Daddy always smile at Mia, different than he does with you?" I laughed it off, told her she was imagining things. But children see what adults try to bury. Now that memory stung like salt in an open wound. The confirmation hit me fully the next morning. My colleague, Jenna, texted me a link before I even rolled out of bed. The video. Grainy, shaky, but damning. There I was, confronting them in the hallway, Nathan's cheek red from my hand, Mia caught in the frame like a deer in headlights. It had already spread beyond our conference, reposted on LinkedIn, whispered about in private chat groups, shared in industry Slack channels. And then another message, from my sister. Just 5 words. "It's true. I'm so sorry." That was it. No more doubts, no more mental gymnastics. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was public. It was viral. It was undeniable. I sat there, phone heavy in my hand, breathing shallow. Everything I'd poured into Nathan, everything I'd trusted Mia with, they had weaponized it against me. The stakes weren't only about losing a husband or a friend. I stood to lose my reputation, my financial stability, my daughter's security, even my dignity if I let them win. That morning, as the video replayed for the 1,000th time in my mind, something hardened inside me. Love had died. Trust had evaporated. but something else replaced it. Resolve. I wasn't going to be their victim. I was going to be their reckoning. By the second morning, grief had already calcified into something sharper. I woke up not with tears, but with a checklist forming in my head. My body was heavy, but my mind was clear. The game had shifted. I wasn't going to plead or beg. I was going to dismantle. The first move was money. I logged into our joint account before Nathan could. My fingers hovered for a second, trembling. Then I hit transfer. Every cent that had my name on it went into a private account I'd opened years ago but never used. When the confirmation screen popped up, my chest loosened. That was my first breath of control. Next came the credit cards. I called the bank, reported suspicious activity, froze the joint lines. By the time Nathan woke up to swipe his card for breakfast or gas, he'd meet the sting of declined. I wanted him to feel that pinch, to taste inconvenience, to know the cushion he leaned on was gone. Then I packed. Not frantically, strategically. I went through the house like a general surveying the battlefield. Documents first. Birth certificates, my business contracts, property deeds, tax records, Lila's school forms, her medical records. Every folder went into a fireproof box. Clothes next, but only essentials. A suitcase each, mine and Lila's. Enough to walk away and not look back. While folding her little dresses, I thought about what I'd tell her. Children sense everything. I wouldn't hide the truth, but I'd frame it carefully. Daddy made choices that hurt us. And now, Mommy has to make sure we're safe. That was the script forming in my head. By noon, I was at my lawyer's office. She'd been my silent card for years. We met through a women's business group, and she'd always told me, keep your house in your name, keep your savings separate, and if he ever slips, call me first. I should have listened sooner. Now, I sat across her oak desk, voice steady. I want divorce proceedings filed immediately, I said. I want custody. And I want protections in place so he can't touch what's mine. Her pen scratched quickly across the yellow pad. She didn't flinch, didn't waste sympathy. She dealt in solutions, which was exactly what I needed. By mid-afternoon, I was moving further down the list. I called the realtor who'd handled my house purchase. It's time to list it, I said. Quietly, as is. I don't want him to know until the paperwork is ready. Every call, every decision was like reclaiming a brick of the foundation Nathan had tried to rip from under me. My hands still shook, my stomach still flipped, but the fear was gone. Action replaced it. At 5 p.m., Nathan finally called. My phone buzzed with his name. For the first time in years, I didn't feel a rush of warmth seeing it, only disgust. I let it ring twice, then answered. Zara, can we talk? His voice was tight, the usual confidence cracked. You mean like you and Mia talked in the hotel hallway? My tone was ice. He exhaled hard. That was a mistake. Look, we need to figure this out. You can't just... I can. And I already did. There was a pause. What do you mean? You'll find out the next time you try to pay for something, I said, then hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone heavy in my hand. The silence after that click sweeter than anything I'd ever heard. He was finally on the back foot. He didn't know the half of it yet, but he would. That night, I tucked Lila into bed at my sister's house. She looked at me with those big, questioning eyes. Mommy, are we moving? Yes, baby, I whispered, brushing her hair back. We're moving forward. And I meant it. Because for the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't drowning. I was swimming. And I was heading straight for the shore, ready to set fire to everything I left behind. The fallout hit faster than I expected. By the third day, my phone buzzed with messages not of pity, but of solidarity. Women I barely spoke to at the conference reached out. Good for you, Zara. I saw the video. Stay strong. The whispers were shifting. I wasn't just the betrayed wife anymore. I was the woman who slapped her cheating husband in front of the entire industry. Nathan, on the other hand, was unraveling. The first crack showed when he tried booking a hotel room for himself and Mia. His card got declined. then the second, then the third. I knew because he called me in a fury that night, spitting through the phone. "What the hell did you do?" "What you should have expected," I replied coolly. "You don't get to use my money to fund your betrayal." The line went dead. 10 minutes later, I saw his name light up again. I didn't answer. By the next morning, Mia's desperation showed. She called me from an unknown number, her voice sugary but shaking. "Zara, can we talk? Woman to woman?" I almost laughed. "You lost the right to that conversation the second you put your hands on my husband." "He's not your husband anymore," she snapped, and then her tone cracked. "Do you realize what you're doing to him? To us? He doesn't have access to anything. People are talking." "Good," I cut in. "Let them talk. I gave you 10 years of my life. You gave me nothing but betrayal. Enjoy each other, without my money, without my friends, without my network." Her silence stretched before she hung up. That silence was satisfaction in its purest form. Meanwhile, my family closed ranks around me. My sister stopped being polite when Nathan called the house. My mother told me over dinner, "We always knew you carried him. Now the world sees it too." Even my father, a man who rarely spoke ill of anyone, muttered, "He's a fool, and she's worse." But the most brutal reaction came from our social circle. Couples who used to invite us out suddenly stopped replying to Nathan's texts. A mutual friend forwarded me screenshots. Mia had posted a smug photo of her and Nathan at brunch, captioned with some nonsense about new beginnings. Within hours, the comments turned savage. "Isn't this the guy who cheated at Zara's conference? Homewrecker much?" The post vanished by the evening. For the first time, Mia was learning what it meant to live outside my shadow. She wasn't the admired best friend anymore. She was the woman who betrayed someone everyone respected. But the ripple effects weren't just social. Nathan's professional world started cracking too. A colleague from his old firm called me, voice hesitant. "Hey, Zara. Not sure if you know, but word's going around that investors are pulling out of projects he was trying to pitch. Nobody wants that association right now." I leaned back in my chair, a bitter smile spreading. Consequences. Real, tangible consequences. Still, Nathan wasn't going down quietly. That night, he tried again, not with anger this time, but desperation. He showed up at my sister's doorstep. I heard the knock, the muffled argument outside, my sister telling him to leave. But when I opened the door, there he was, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse. "Zara, please," he said, hands half raised like surrender. "We can fix this. I made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake," I said coldly. "You made a choice, over and over again, with her, and now you're living with it." His jaw clenched. "Don't do this. Don't turn everyone against me." "I didn't have to," I said. "You did it yourself." I closed the door in his face. His muffled voice on the other side carried one last line before he left. "You'll regret this." But as I leaned against the door, breathing steady, I knew the opposite was true. He was the one drowning now, and I wasn't going to throw him a lifeline. 2 weeks after the conference, I thought the worst of the public humiliation was behind me. The slap had already gone viral, the whispers had done their damage, and Nathan had been reduced to begging on my sister's porch. I figured he'd retreat into silence, lick his wounds, and wait for the dust to settle. But Nathan was never good at disappearing quietly. His mother called me first. "We're having a family dinner," she said in her usual clipped tone. "You should come. Nathan wants to apologize." I almost hung up. But something in her voice, the brittle desperation of a woman clinging to appearances, made me pause. A public setting, his family watching, his pride dangling by a thread. Maybe this was exactly where I needed to be. So I went. The restaurant was upscale, dim lights bouncing off polished wood and glass. Their family had reserved the private room in the back, but private in a place like this meant nothing. Waiters floated in and out. Other patrons lingered nearby, curious about the gathering. Perfect. When I walked in, Nathan was already seated, flanked by his parents. Mia was there too, dressed like she thought she could pass for respectable. She avoided my eyes. Good. I sat across from them, spine straight, calm as ice. The tension was so thick it made even the waiter stutter when he asked about drinks. Nathan cleared his throat, rehearsed. Zara, thank you for coming. I know things have been chaotic. I want to set the record straight. What happened at the conference was a lapse in judgment. It wasn't what people are making it out to be. I laughed softly. A lapse? That's what you call sneaking off with my best friend in front of 300 witnesses? His mother winced. His father glared. Mia shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. Nathan tried again, voice louder this time, trying to control the narrative. Look, I take responsibility for hurting you. But this witch hunt online, it's unfair. We're being dragged through the mud for something personal. That was my cue. I reached into my bag and pulled out a neat folder, sliding it across the table. He frowned, opening it with hesitant fingers. Inside, printed screenshots of texts between him and Mia. Proof of dates, hotel bookings, gifts he'd bought her with my money. I'd had them compiled by my lawyer. Personal? I said, my voice sharp enough to cut the air. You siphoned money from our joint account to buy her jewelry. You booked hotels on weekends you told me you were traveling for work. You made me raise our daughter alone while you played house with my so-called friend. Gasps rippled around the table. Even his mother's mask cracked. Nathan, is this true? She whispered, voice trembling. He stammered. Those are out of context. I leaned forward. There's no context where buying lingerie for another woman with my inheritance is anything but betrayal. Mia finally snapped, slamming her napkin down. Enough, Zara. You're humiliating us. Us? I turned to her slowly, savoring the moment. Sweetheart, I don't need to humiliate you. You did that the second you opened your legs to a married man. All I did was bring the receipts. The room went silent. Someone at a nearby table muttered, Damn. A waiter froze mid-step, eyes wide. Nathan's father shoved his chair back, face red with shame. I raised you better than this, he hissed at his son. And you? His glare cut to Mia. You're not welcome in this family. Mia's face crumpled. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, heels clattering against the tile. Nathan reached after her helplessly but stopped under the weight of his father's stare. His mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, whispering, I can't believe this. I stood, sliding my chair back slowly, deliberately. Everyone's eyes were on me now, waiting for the final strike. I looked at Nathan one last time, his face pale, his posture crumbling. Then I delivered it. You didn't just cheat on me. You tried to build a life out of my backbone. But here's the thing, Nathan. When the foundation walks away, the whole house collapses. The words hung in the air like a gavel. Someone near the door whispered, That's going viral. I picked up my bag, straightened my jacket, and walked out of the restaurant, leaving him there to drown in the wreckage of his lies. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, voices raised, his mother weeping, his father's anger boiling. But none of it touched me anymore. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. For the first time in weeks, I inhaled deeply and felt lighter. He had wanted to reclaim control, to spin the story, to paint me as bitter and unreasonable. Instead, I had torn the mask from his face in front of the very people whose approval he craved most. And the best part? I didn't even raise my voice. I thought the restaurant would be the end of it, that Nathan would finally crawl into the shadows where he belonged. But men like him don't surrender. They double down. 2 days later, my phone exploded with notifications. He had gone public. Not just a half-hearted apology, a full interview with a local morning show. There he was, sitting across from a sympathetic anchor, dressed in a clean navy suit like nothing had happened. His voice was calm, his eyes misty at the corners. I've made mistakes, he said, clasping his hands like a politician. But Zara is exaggerating. What you saw online was a private disagreement, twisted out of context. I still love my wife, and I wish she'd sit down with me to talk, not destroy my reputation. Destroy his reputation? I nearly choked on my coffee. He wasn't the one holding a knife to his own throat. He was pretending I had pushed it there. The interview was clipped, shared, reposted within hours. His family members liked the video. Some of his old colleagues commented, "Glad to see him handling this maturely." And for a second, just a flicker, I felt the panic creep in, the fear that maybe people would believe him, that maybe the carefully curated sympathy card would work. But then the receipts dropped. I don't know who leaked them. Maybe Jenna, maybe one of the analysts from the conference who'd saved the video. But suddenly the internet was flooded with screenshots of his texts to Mia, the jewelry orders, the hotel confirmations, even voice notes where he'd bragged about finally moving on from Zara. It wasn't just whispers anymore. It was evidence, and the internet has no mercy. The hashtag started small. Team Zara. By noon, it was trending in our city. By nightfall, it was everywhere. Memes of me slapping him in the hallway replayed with captions like, "Queen Energy." Screenshots of his texts were stitched into TikToks with dramatic music. A viral post read, "Imagine cheating on your wife at her own conference. Men like this deserve nothing." His PR stunt backfired spectacularly. Where he wanted pity, he got parody. Where he wanted dignity, he got demolition. Mia tried to step in, posting a shaky Instagram story. "People don't understand our love. We didn't plan to hurt anyone." Within minutes, the comments turned brutal. "Love? More like theft. You were in her house eating her food while plotting with her husband." She deleted the account the next day. Nathan, though, kept fighting. He posted a long Facebook note, paragraphs about betrayal, how I had frozen him out financially and was weaponizing the court system. He painted himself as the real victim, the man crushed by a vindictive wife. I read it once, then opened my lawyer's email chain. Attached were clean, dated bank statements showing exactly how much of my inheritance he had drained over the years. Jewelry, vacations, dinners with Mia. Every dollar a nail in his coffin. I didn't even need to post them myself. Someone, maybe a friend, maybe a stranger rooting for me, leaked the PDFs online. By evening, Nathan's Facebook note was being mocked with side-by-side screenshots of his words and the cold numbers proving otherwise. The backlash turned vicious. A parody account popped up with his photo and the caption, "Declined again, babe." Someone stitched his interview with the receipts overlaid, racking up millions of views. He couldn't keep up with the tidal wave, but the cruelest cut wasn't from strangers. It was from his own family. His father released a statement, short, blunt, posted on LinkedIn of all places. "We do not condone Nathan's actions. We stand with Zara and our granddaughter." That was the nail. When your own blood abandons your spin, no one buys it anymore. I sat at my kitchen table that night, scrolling through the chaos, my daughter asleep upstairs, my phone buzzing nonstop. I should have felt exhausted. Instead, I felt vindicated. For years, I carried him. I built him. And now, the same networks that once applauded his charm were tearing it apart. The final straw came a week later. A podcast host invited him on, probably hoping for clicks from the scandal. Nathan showed up defensive, agitated, trying to reassert control. Halfway through, the host pulled out a tablet and read one of his texts aloud. "I can't wait to finally be free of Zara. She's too focused on her career to notice me and Mia anyway." Nathan froze. The clip went viral within hours. This wasn't just a marital spat anymore. This was public execution, 21st century style. The court of opinion had rendered its verdict, and it was unanimous. And as I set my phone down that night, silence finally settling over me, I realized I didn't have to destroy him. He'd destroyed himself. All I had done was let the truth out into the light. The morning the court papers were served, I sat in my lawyer's office, coffee in one hand, pen in the other, steady for the first time in weeks. I didn't flinch when she slid the thick envelope across the desk. The petition for divorce, the demand for custody, the financial disclosures. It was all there, neat and cold, like the justice I had been waiting for. By noon, Nathan had them in his hand. My phone lit up with furious texts. "You can't do this. You're ruining me. We can fix this if you stop now." I didn't reply. Every word he sent was proof of his panic, and I wanted him to choke on it. The legal process moved like a machine once it started. My lawyer filed emergency motions to freeze accounts Nathan might try to drain. We subpoenaed records, pulling up years of misuse, dinners, hotel stays, gifts that traced a pattern I had been blind to. Each number on the spreadsheet was another dagger. The custody fight was brutal. Nathan's lawyer tried to paint me as too focused on career, suggesting I neglected Lila. I almost laughed out loud in the courtroom. I brought photo after photo, school reports, testimony from teachers who'd seen me at every conference, every recital. Meanwhile, Nathan couldn't even recall the name of her homeroom teacher. His lawyer fumbled when the judge asked how often he had actually attended Lila's doctor's appointments. The answer was obvious: almost never. When the judge granted me full temporary custody pending the final decree, Nathan's face drained of color. He looked at me like I had cut off his arm. And maybe I had. The arm he had used to hold power over me for a decade. The financial dismantling came next. My lawyer was ruthless. She built the case brick by brick. My inheritance that Nathan had absorbed, the joint accounts I had funded, the house I had bought long before he entered my life. She highlighted every transfer he made to Mia, every dollar that left our family for their affair. His father showed up in court once, sitting stiff and silent in the gallery. Afterward, he didn't speak to Nathan at all. When the reporters asked if he supported his son, the old man's reply was curt: "No comment." But then, days later, he issued a statement to the business community. "Our firm distances itself from Nathan Knozeisen. We support Zara and our granddaughter in this difficult time." That was the professional death blow. Nathan's younger brother, always the golden child, quietly unfollowed him on social media. Friends who used to golf with him stopped answering his calls. One by one, the people who once built his safety net cut the ropes. He wasn't just losing me. He was losing everyone. And Mia? Her collapse was quieter, but just as brutal. She lost her job within a month. Her boss didn't want the PR nightmare of employing the homewrecker everyone whispered about. I heard she tried freelancing, but clients ghosted when they Googled her name. She and Nathan were spotted arguing outside a rundown apartment complex. Her mascara streaked, his voice raised. They had thought betrayal would buy them freedom. All it bought them was isolation. The house became a battlefield. Nathan's lawyer argued he should get half its value, even though it had been mine from the start. My lawyer produced the deed, proof of the inheritance funds, records that his name was added years later but had no bearing on ownership. The judge sided with me. The house was mine, undisputed. When that ruling came down, Nathan cursed under his breath so loudly the bailiff told him to watch himself. But the cruelest part for him wasn't the house. It was the accounts. For years, he had lived off the stability I provided, floating on my discipline, my long nights at work, my careful savings. When the court formally awarded me the bulk of our assets, citing his misuse and betrayal, it stripped him of the last lifeline. He walked out of that courtroom with nothing but debt. The gossip didn't stop outside the courthouse either. Local outlets covered the divorce like it was celebrity news. Headlines screamed, "Knozeisen scandal, betrayed wife, wins custody and assets." Photos of me walking into the courthouse with my lawyer went viral. Calm, poised, unflinching, while Nathan looked disheveled, sweating in a crumpled suit. He tried to play the victim again online, posting a shaky video in his car. "I just want to see my daughter. Zara's keeping me from her." But people weren't buying it anymore. The comments tore him apart. "Maybe try being a father before crying about custody. She didn't keep you from your daughter, you did." One night, after another hearing, I passed him in the parking lot. He looked smaller somehow, hunched, like the fight had drained him. He muttered something under his breath. Maybe please, or maybe help. I didn't slow down. The final decree came 6 months later. Divorce granted, full custody to me, assets awarded in my favor. Nathan left with nothing but personal debt and visitation rights carefully monitored by the court. When I stepped out of the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. "Zara, do you have a comment?" I stopped, turned, and said one line that ended up on headlines everywhere. He took everything from me but the truth, and the truth gave it all back. It wasn't rehearsed. It was just raw, the truth spilling out of me in its simplest form. And people clung to it. That night, sitting at my kitchen table while Lila slept upstairs, I realized it was finally over. The man who once held my future in his hands was now reduced to rubble, broke, disowned, irrelevant. Mia was gone too, vanished from every circle we'd ever shared. All that remained was me. Me and my daughter, standing on ground, I rebuilt brick by brick, stronger than anything they had tried to tear apart. I didn't expect to see him again. Not after the decree, not after the assets, not after the world had turned its back on him. But men like Nathan don't fade quietly. They linger, clinging to scraps of what they lost. It was a gray afternoon when my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize, but the message was unmistakable. "Please, just one meeting, for closure." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Not because I owed him anything, but because I wanted to look him in the eyes one last time and make it clear. He no longer had a place in my life. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town, far from the glittering places he once craved. When I walked in, he was already there, hunched over a chipped mug, a shadow of the man I used to know. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, the charm drained from him. "Zara," he said softly, almost reverently, as I sat across from him. "You look good." I didn't bother with pleasantries. "What do you want?" He leaned forward, eyes searching mine. "I want us back. I know I screwed up. God, I screwed up worse than I can ever explain. But we had something. 10 years, Zara. Doesn't that count for anything?" I let the silence stretch until it burned. 10 years of me carrying you, funding your dreams, raising our daughter while you played house with Mia. That's what it counted for. He flinched but pressed on. "I was stupid, weak, but Mia's gone. She left when the money dried up. You were right about her. You were right about everything. And I see that now." His voice cracked, raw with desperation. "Please, just give me another chance. For Lila, if not for me." At the mention of her name, my spine stiffened. "Don't you dare use our daughter as leverage. You had every chance to be her father. You chose hotels and jewelry instead." His hands shook as he gripped the mug. "I'm broke, Zara. My family won't speak to me. My career's dead. I'm drowning. And you're the only one who can throw me a rope." I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the nights I cried alone, the humiliation of the conference, the way he'd looked at Mia like I didn't exist. Pity had no place here. "You want a rope?" I said coldly. "I gave you one. For years. And every time you tied it into a noose for me. I won't do it again." His face twisted, anger flashing beneath the desperation. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away? After everything?" I leaned in, my voice low, steady. "I already walked away. You just didn't notice until the floor collapsed under you." For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes darted around the cafe, as if hoping someone would come to his rescue. But no one did. The world had moved on. He was just another man sitting in a forgotten booth, begging for scraps of a life he'd destroyed. Finally, he whispered, "I loved you once." I stood, gathering my bag, my coat. "You loved the version of me that built your world for you, the version that kept you afloat while you dragged me under. But love without respect is just possession, Nathan, and I'm not yours to possess anymore." He reached out, hand trembling, but I pulled back before he could touch me. My final words cut sharper than any slap I'd ever given him. "You're the architect of your own destruction. Don't ever mistake me for the wrecking ball." I turned and walked out, Heels clicking against the tile, the door swinging shut behind me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. For the first time, the silence felt clean, final. A year later, my life feels like it belongs to someone else. Not because it's unrecognizable, but because it's finally mine. Lila and I live in the same house, but it feels different now. Lighter. The air carries laughter instead of tension, peace instead of suspicion. She's grown more confident too, no longer watching me with worried eyes, no longer asking questions she shouldn't have to. She sees a mother who is steady, unbroken, and stronger than before. And I see a daughter who knows her worth will never be tied to someone else's approval. Work has flourished. The conference that once felt stained by betrayal is now remembered for resilience. People invite me to speak about leadership, about rebuilding, about carrying yourself through storms with your head held high. The same industry that whispered about my humiliation now applauds my recovery. It's poetic, really. The thing Nathan tried to strip from me became the thing that made me untouchable. I've stopped measuring my days in losses. Instead, I measure them in quiet victories. Mornings where I sip coffee while Lila eats pancakes, evenings where I close my laptop without guilt, weekends spent without the weight of someone else's betrayal dragging behind me. Freedom isn't loud, it's steady, and it's priceless. As for Nathan, I don't wonder much. But the world has a way of reminding me. Sometimes I see him in passing, once outside a convenience store, once hunched at a bus stop. The man who once walked into rooms with charm and swagger now avoids eye contact, his clothes worn, his face aged. He is smaller, not just in stature but in presence, like life shrank to match the hollow space he carved for himself. Mia vanished too. No social media, no familiar circles. Someone told me she moved states away, chasing a fresh start. Maybe she found it. Maybe she didn't. Either way, it doesn't matter. Her story no longer intersects with mine. Do I feel satisfaction? Yes. But not the fiery kind I once craved. It's quieter now, grounded. Revenge was the spark, but freedom is the flame. I didn't just survive their betrayal. I transformed it. I built something new on the ashes, and for once, it's something they can't touch. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that hallway at the conference. The slap, the gasps, the humiliation seared into my skin. And then I think about now. Lila asleep upstairs. The house finally my own, my future wide open. The distance between those two versions of me is immeasurable, but I wouldn't erase the path. Without it, I wouldn't have discovered this strength. Betrayal tried to define me, but it failed. Freedom redefined me. And as I close the door on that chapter for good, I know one thing with absolute certainty. The life I have now isn't revenge. It's victory.